welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today I'm doing my most disappointing reads of the year. So the first half are DNFs, where, like, from the jump, I was like, probably not. So it means usually I got really hyped up on the synopsis, and then I started reading it, and I was like, uh-oh, oh no. So that's probably what those are. And then the ones on the second half actually are all 3 stars and above. And this usually means it's an internal problem. So I read, I was like, yes, this is great. Everything's going great. Yahoo. Yahoo. And then something went wrong internally. And I was like, oh no. Okay. No. So, without further ado, we're going to get into it. Number 10 is Homicidal Maniac by K.A. Merikan. This one is a funny little addition because it's very specific to me. So, this deals with a serial killer who's also very into Christmas. And K.A. Merikan is one of my favorite romance writers, and so I decided to pick it up. Who knew that someone having a Christmas, I wouldn't even call it a kink, an obsession? Like, Christmas is his whole obsession, other than killing people, is a turnoff. It's a huge turnoff. I could not take it seriously, I did not like him, and I did not like all of the Christmas everything. Food, clothes, puns, jokes. Like, I could not. So I was like, absolutely, I'm disappointed in K.A. Merikan. I guess not really, because I knew what it was. It was a Christmas romance, so actually I'm disappointed in myself for picking up a book which I just didn't know it would go so hard on the, like, Christmas obsession. So that's my bad. Alright, number 9 is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. So this one, the writing was okay. Okay, Rachel Harrison isn't amazing for me. A woman goes back to her hometown where she grew up in kind of like a culty type situation, and there's a wedding happening between her ex-boyfriend and her ex-best friend. And she goes to kind of like stoke the flames and get the tea on what's happening. And some things are revealed, and pretty much once that was revealed, like, all of the air was let out of the hot air balloon. I wasn't interested, there was no tension, there was nothing dark happening because what you thought was dark isn't really that dark or dark for her. So the writing wasn't strong enough, the plot wasn't strong enough, the characters weren't strong enough, and the dark vibes weren't strong enough to hold me in the book. So I was like, I would rather just see myself out. So that was not for me. Number 8 is Rouge by Mona Awad. We're following a woman whose mother has died, and the mom was part of this weird beauty cult. And when she is invited to join, weird things happen. The writing of Mona Awad is wonderful, and the weird vibes are immaculate, but the narrator, the main character who you're getting information from, she's very unreliable, which is fine, but she also is like a wishy-washy, really kind of weak person. She's like a trash bag floating in the wind at the whims of other people. And so, like, it really annoyed me because I'm like, I'm here for the vibes, but, like, literally anything could happen and nothing could happen because the narrator is not even driving her own fate, if that makes sense. So it couldn't keep me in. I was like, I'm sorry to you, but I do not want to read this book anymore. So I left it and DNF'd it. Number 7 is Butter by Asako Yuzuki. This is a booktube and like brick and mortar store darling. I think it won Waterstone's Book of the Year or something like that. And I don't understand the hype. So it has a lot of things that I think is popular right now on BookTube and that I have always been a fan of, which is like unhinged female main character, supporting women's rights and wrongs, and female serial killers I'm also very interested in. So we're following a journalist who is trying to cover the case of a female serial killer in Japan. But that serial killer isn't writing to other people or journalists at all. So she decides that in order to speak to her, she's going to talk in her language, which is the language of food. So the serial killer responds to her about like recipes and food and has her try new things. This was so boring. It was painful. So for something that is supposed to be about a serial killer, I was so completely bored out of my mind. The pace is glacial and the main character is insufferable. I really couldn't stand it. Also, a small part of me absolutely was triggered by like the way she is treated in Japan by her husband, by her coworkers. Because if you didn't know, I lived in Japan for 3.5 years and I worked there, obviously. And it's just something that I would not like to experience again. It's not like overtly mean, but it's subtly malicious and like anti-women and just grinds down on you like professionally. Luckily not at home because my husband is Australian, but like it grinds down over time. So I just didn't want to keep reading. I'm good on that. Number 6 is Blood Like Mine by Stuart and Neville. This one I really wanted to love. So it's a mother-daughter duo, and the daughter died and was reincarnated as like a vampire. And so they're on the run because obviously the daughter, newly awakened, like did a bunch of stuff that made the feds after them. So they're on the run. So the view from the mother and daughter was so good. I was so into it. And this was an audiobook, so I was like, I'm loving this. However, the other point of view is the male detective who's hunting them down. And when I say he is like every other male detective you have ever read or watched in a movie, I mean it. He's like, oh, my wife and child left me because I'm so committed to the job and I'm supposed to spend Christmas with them, but they'll really understand it this time that I have to do something for the case. I'm like, you deserve everything that came to you. You've learned no lessons. Like the fact that he can't cook and can only use a microwave. Okay. That is some weaponized incompetence that, yeah, you should just starve to death, I guess. I don't know. Like, learn to cook. Also prioritize your family. So I just couldn't, like every time we were in the mother and daughter, like with them, I was like, absolutely, yeah. When we were at the male detective, I was like, oh no, like suffering. And then the streams crossed and they met each other and I was like, yeah, kill him. And then he didn't die. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to keep being in his head, so I'm gonna leave this book. So parts of it were great, parts of it were bad, and I didn't want to keep reading. All right, number 5 is Such a Bad Influence by Olivia Muenter. This is about 2 sisters in a family, and one of them is an influencer, and the other one is kind of idolizing her, when suddenly the sister who is the like influencer goes missing. And the sister and the mom who remain are trying to figure out like what happened to her and going through like the people she knew, her identity online, and what could have been going on that they weren't aware of. And some of the elements in this I was so hooked into in like the first third, because you realize that the influencer, she does weird things. Like she'll draw like little stick figures, like little dark things on the wall whenever she visits places, and it seems like there's another her that's hidden, obviously, that she's not showing people. So I was like, oh yes, this is some good fucking food. I'm ready. What happened? Like, did she plan this? Is she planning her own death? She's gonna escape, or like what is she like a mastermind? What's going on? Oh. So even though I gave this 3 stars, the stars were taken off because one whole star for the repetitiveness. So we would learn about facts through the police, through the sister, through the news reporting, and through like other secondary sources like Friends or tabloids or whatever. And it was too many repetitions. It was so many that the pace, I was like, you're ruining everything. Like, don't tell me this 3 times. I don't need to hear it 3 times. And then the other star it lost was for the end. I was like, wow. That was so underwhelming. So underwhelming. I want to go back to sleep and wake up again and have you try the ending again. Like any different ending. Please. Because, yeah, so I feel like it's so disappointing because if the repetitious parts had been cut out and there was a different ending, I would have eaten this up. I would have absolutely loved this because the dynamics are good. The fractured family elements are so suspicious, but didn't work. All right, and the last one in this kind of section, I also gave 3 stars, and this is Baby X by Kira Peikoff. And this was pretty fascinating. It deals with a slightly advanced future where there can be DNA theft, and there are so many ramifications that can come from stealing other people's DNA. So basically you can alter genes to produce children, basically picking and choosing which children you want to move forward with in the pregnancy once you know everything about them. So it opens up the door for like, if people could be sued because their parents basically pick them because they're a genius, but they have like a chronic health condition that shortens their lifespan, something like that. There's also people who would steal DNA. Oh, trash truck, lovely. Oh, too bad my daughter's not here. She loves the trash truck. Anyone else whose kid loves the trash truck? There are also cases of DNA theft where you could have a baby with someone and they wouldn't even know that they had a child and they like never had sex with you. It opens up a world of possibilities, and we're following like a journalist, a person who is an anti-DNA theft like bodyguard, a rock star that she is guarding, and also this gay dad who lost his husband and is going to have a baby. And then we're also following a woman who, and my dog's being so cute on the floor. We're following a woman who is a surrogate mom carrying the baby for the gay dad. So things were very intellectually interesting in this book. But I didn't really connect to any of the characters, like if that makes sense. The author, I believe, her field of study is genetics and biology, so she knows what she's talking about, but I don't think she knew how to write out like fully fleshed characters that have really gripping like backstories, and like the way they talk sets them apart from each other and would make you care for them. In the end, I ended up giving this 3 stars because it was really interesting, and I think it would make a great like book club discussion because there is so much complexity and nuance to a lot of the issues that would arise. But in terms of like the storytelling and the writing style and the character development, I thought it was quite poor. Now we are to the top 3 most disappointing, and these books, I feel like if things had been fixed about them, these would have been in my favorites of the year. So I'm really conflicted because it's like there is an excellent book in these books. There are just slight like errors or little like big mistakes or things that it brought it down for me so far. And yeah, let's get into it. Number 3, most disappointing, is The Memory of Animals by Claire Fuller. This is set in a virus-like apocalypse where right before it happens, a woman agrees to go to a clinical trial. And so she is locked in a trial room and given this medicine that's a new cure for something that she doesn't know. When she wakes up, she doesn't, like, there's barely anyone around, and she realizes that the world outside has absolutely gone to shit in like the 2 weeks since she's been knocked out sick after getting the medicine. And it is a virus epidemic that causes people's like skin to swell and split and their brain to slowly like forget things. And it is horrifying out there. Like through the windows, they can see stuff happening, and I was horrified and I was clutching my pearls in horror. But more horrific than outside is inside. So you have the people that were at this point, they'd all agreed to the trial, but only some of them had gotten the medicine. And they're not sure how the virus spreads and also what will happen to the people who have received the medicine. Like, what does it do? and they're dealing with like low food and water, so they have to ration things, and it's a closed room situation, and they're having to deal with this and like what's going on outside, and also not letting people in, because people obviously come to the door and are like, let us in, and they're like having to decide what do they do. I was riveted. However, there is one distinctive through line that sucked so much ass, and it's like one of the people in the trial brought this thing he was working on that allows you to access your memories and live in that memory. So it's like in any sci-fi movie that has this kind of like memory bank thing, you know what I mean? So she keeps going back in time to Greece to be with her family. And she keeps doing it over and over, and the vignettes of her family time get so much longer, and the extension is so long that I'm like, I don't care. I'm sorry for you, I don't care. I want to get back to the zombie apocalypse. It's not a virus apocalypse. I want to get back to the virus apocalypse. I don't want to be in Greece. I want to get back to the apocalypse. I want to get back to the thrilling, like, locked room, low resources situation that we are in. Like, why are we here? It made me so mad. So mad. I think that entire through line should have just been cut out completely. I hated it, and I hated every time we were pulled back into it, because I was like, no! Like, what the fuck is going on in the real world? Like, no! Yeah, so I was so disappointed, because without that, this could have been like really good. Number 2 on this list is The Anthhill by Julianne Pachico. I gave it 3 stars as well, and it is a complete mixed bag. I buddy read this with a friend of mine who I met from YouTube videos. So we realized that she lives within driving distance. And hey, look at that! So we met up, and then we buddy read this together. And I'm really glad that I did read it all the way through, because up until 40%, I was like, this is a DNF. I am not gonna read this. This is gonna be in the worst of the year. And then at 40%, I got invested. I got really invested. Okay, I hope this is right. My memory ran out, so I had to delete some stuff. And I hope we were talking about The Anthhill by Julianne Pachico. So a woman who is a failed academic gets in touch with her childhood best friend who lives in Colombia. So she has white parents from the UK, but she was raised in Colombia, and he is Colombian, and she decides to go and visit him, and he's been running this kind of neighborhood daycare type situation. It's not a school, but it's a safe place for kids to go. It's like kind of like a YMCA type vibe, which is called The Anthhill, and he's in charge of it. And when she first gets there, she's met by this man who she doesn't know, but he says that he knows Maddie, and he decides to like take her around for food, and he's giving her tips about how to like survive in the city, because it's kind of the slums. Like there's a lot of violence and like cultural repercussions from the war. Like there is a lot of antagonistic vibes going on from him and from the city itself, like against her. And even though she considers herself like a local, she's not really a local, because she's white, she's really removed, and she has grown up in a privilege that like no one in the area has, other than the other white tourists who have come to give their aid at the Anthhill. Yeah, so that kind of is setting up the vibes. Now, as time goes on, I was getting more and more annoyed, because actually Maddie, her childhood best friend, we don't really hear from him. So the dynamic was a lot of just being in the head of Lena, who is the female main character, and I really hate her. I hate like mostly everything about her. She's clueless, she's dense, she's privileged, she is awful. And I did not like that. And I wonder if it was intentional or not, because the author has a very similar upbringing to Lena in the book. I wonder if the author self-inserted and they think that the story is interesting from Lena's point of view because that's the only view that they see because it's themselves, when in reality, this whole thing should have been told from Maddie's point of view. It would have been so much better. Anyway, let's get back to the plot. So, around 40%, I was like, I don't really, this is so boring. The writing style is really all over the place. Like, it's not going to be for everyone. It wasn't for me until about 40%, and then I was like, okay, I'm down for the ride. Also, there are weird interjections, which have to do with like a dystopian post-apocalyptic landscape, where two people are going through the landscape, like a girl and an Arctic fox, and you're like, what is going on? What is happening? I don't know. So basically, you don't get any sort of answers for things at all until kind of around 40% you start to feel out the situation. And then that's when I was like, oh, okay, I'm down. It's gonna be dark. Things are starting to kick off. I'm ready. Because what you realize is the Anthhill, as much as it is a place of solace for the neighborhood kids, not everything is as it appears. There are things going on below the surface with Maddie, with the kids, with the area it's in, that Lena thinks she knows about, but does she really know about it? So this had really creeping vibes, and it feels like you're constantly being watched. And I ended up giving this 3 stars because it feels like a really good book is in this book, but it's been eaten by like a female main character who I loathe and who I find really boring and pretentious, sloppy writing sometimes, and just really dense, I would say like exposition. You can feel it coming straight from the author through the mouth of the character, like soapboxing about like tourism in reconstructing areas, like the white savior complex, things that I'm fine with reading about, and actually I think they have been done really well in other books, but it was so like hitting you in the face with it that you could feel the author yelling it through the main character's mouth. So ultimately I gave this 3 stars, and I just wish it had been edited because it would have been really good. Okay, and we are to my number 1 most disappointing. My battery light is flashing, so I'm going to see if I can do it before it dies. My number 1 most disappointing is Annibot by Sierra Greer. This one I gave 4.25 stars actually. This is going to be in my best of the year list. However, there is a singular point where it makes it the most disappointing. So we are following a sex bot essentially who is bought by this man, and he is just an average man. And he has disgusting things about him, and you hate this situation for her. But slowly, as she becomes more aware and more cognizant, and more, dare I say, like, human, she starts to question why he treats her certain ways. And I thought that this was so interesting. And I know that some people absolutely hate this. Like, Rachel from the Shades of Orange, she really hated this and did not like that the sci-fi went into like the relationship side of things, like really heavily focusing on it. But I actually found it really interesting because I've never read another kind of human AI bot story where it did such a deep dive into like complex interpersonal relationships. And I love human AI books, and this one was blowing me away. The point that I hated is like, okay, spoiler. So if you don't want to know, I will see you in another video soon, but I'm going to spoil it right now. There's a certain point where I am like, she's deciding to flee. He treats her horribly. He's doing absolutely awful things to her. I'm like, babes, just kill him. Because she's going on the run anyway. Like, they're going to decommission her if they catch her anyway. So I'm like, why not just kill him? Seriously, I hate him. Just kill him. And then the end just peters out. It just peters out into nothing. The end was so a nothing burger of a white toast bread, nothing. When the voice was so distinctive, I thought, in Annie Bot's head. Like, I don't agree with what she was thinking or feeling or any of this, but you can see how she is learning and thinking and growing, and it felt so realized, and I loathed some of the stuff that happened, right? But like, I'm in it, and I was thinking about like lots of stuff, and the end was just this nothing burger of like a like I can't even explain it, but it was so disappointing, the end. So I gave it 4.25 stars, and you'll see it in the best of the year, but the reason it didn't get higher is for that. So highly disappointed that that happened, or didn't happen, I should say. Like a little stabby with any sharp weapon would have made it really good, in my opinion. Yeah, so those are the most disappointing of the year. Let me know what your most disappointing were down below and why. Of course, disappointing is tricky and complex. And I will see you in another video soon. Lots of love. Bye!